Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Thriving Minds podcast with your host, Walter Parada, where we strive to provide you with empowering talks so you can live to thrive. I hope you find yourself in the right frame of mind, focusing on the things within your control. All right, so today's episode is talking to yourself out loud. So, what do you think about that? How often do you talk to yourself out loud, if at all? Do you find that it's beneficial to work through the problems or the struggles that you're facing? Or do you find it crazy because of what others might think of you? Well, here's the thing. You already talk to yourself silently. That's going to dictate your outlook and your actions. It's estimated that 800 to 1,400 words are said per minute during that self-talk. That's 48,000 to 84,000 words in an hour. And that's a lot of words that can either empower you or disempower you. This can be so many different things about what you're doing, what you're not doing, how you're not performing well, how you are performing well, or what you can do better. The wide range of topics that go through your mind can be so conflicting, so confusing, that it makes you just want to sit there at times. But if you know how to harness your self-talk properly, you're more likely to walk, act, and perform with a purpose, with a higher sense of conviction. And the things that you say impact how you feel. That's going to impact how you perform. So the better you feel, the better chance you have at performing better. If you're not conscious and careful of what that self-talk is, the default mode is to be negative, to be overly critical of yourself, looking for reasons why not to do things, why you can't do this, why you can't do that, or that it's too hard. Those that understand the importance of that inner self-talk know that it's a big driving force to get them through those difficult moments, to come out ahead to what they're pursuing. Words are tools, and when they are thought of or when they're spoken, it triggers a picture. So when you tell yourself that you're hungry, you're more likely to think about all the foods that you want. Maybe it's spaghetti, maybe it's rice and beans, or whatever it might be. Words get you to focus on a specific thing. And research has shown that self-talk can help your brain better perform, as it helps to sustain concentration and enhance performance. What happens when you talk out loud is that it limits your mind from wandering from one subject to another. And I can relate to this because in school, I remember when I would take tests and when it came time for reading short essays and summarize what the whole topic was about, I would always say, what did I just read? Because I don't recall it. Because what I read silently was a space for my mind to drift into different things. So by being able to read out loud or talk out loud, it limits those 800 to 1,400 words that are said per minute. It allows for your mind to focus a lot more on the things that are being said, which makes sense why we can remember certain conversations as opposed to maybe what was read earlier that day. If you look at the cone of learning, which generally measures how information is retained, at the very top is reading, which tells us that 10% of what we read, we retain. And then right below that is hearing. So when we hear words, you're 20% more likely to retain it. So when you read something out loud or when you talk out loud about what you're facing, you're twice as likely to retain that information and allows you to better work through things. Research has shown that even those that are able to talk out loud the problems that they're facing are 78% less likely to make mistakes. It's silencing all those conversations that are going on in your head. So talking to yourself out loud is just such a great tool to prevent certain simple things that can be an annoyance. Another benefit to talking to yourself out loud is that it's a great way to better control yourself. This is in part because the things that are said out loud are 10 times more powerful than if you just think it alone. So in the moments that you're facing adversity, you're facing that failure, that embarrassing moment, by you saying to yourself a certain mantra or a certain encouraging statement, it helps to reinforce that as opposed to just wanting to feel sorry and pity for yourself. It's almost like you're changing the narrative. Even though you've experienced a setback, it's an opportunity to pivot from going down that self-defeating road. This is a great coping mechanism that many athletes use when they're training or when they're in the game and things are not going well for them. So if they're training and it's really hot outside and the workout is really hard, some encouraging words that they might say to themselves out loud is, I got to keep pushing through. I got to finish my workout, or I'm going to finish strong. Or if an athlete is in the game and their team is down by 10 points, or they just made a mistake, a certain mantra such as, I'll overcome this, I'm going to give my best going forward, can be the difference in them giving their all as opposed to just giving into the situation that they're in. This is a vital part in mental conditioning that can be transformative. The things that you most repeat usually become your habits, and those habits transform you. So each and every one of us has certain triggers that bring out the worst in us. And when we can recognize what that worst version is and what those triggers are, we can better manage them. And the words that are said, especially out loud, are breaks to help stop yourself from going into that worst version, or at least limiting some of what could be. They're tools or a vehicle to communicate what to focus on, what to do. So in a case where you get upset over someone stepping on your new favorite shoes, or you drop your food and it falls on the ground before you can take a bite, you can consistently remind yourself that unfortunate things will happen that are out of your control, but you can always control how you respond to the situations that you're in. The physical world makes us enamored by what we can see and touch that leaves that mental side at times unattended to. And when something is left unattended, there's a greater chance that it's going to deteriorate. Maybe not in the short term or even the medium term, but it will eventually start to unravel. To prevent this from happening, talk to yourself out loud every day to bring out the best in you. Challenge yourself first thing in the morning, asking yourself, what am I going to get done? What's my purpose? And you're more likely to be motivated to get things done. You may not feel like doing it, but this is a great way to make yourself more accountable. Successful people do what unsuccessful people don't want to do. The right self-talk keeps you on track to the goals that you want to accomplish. It's almost as if when you do say it out loud that you now have a responsibility or a duty to carry it out because you entered a contract with yourself. And at this point, there's no turning back. You might as well get it done. Another helpful way to talk to yourself out loud is through asking yourself the right questions, and eventually you'll find the right answers. So talking to yourself is not only bound to telling yourself certain things, which is beneficial, but also having conversations with yourself. This is especially helpful when you feel stuck, not knowing what to do. And as you engage in dialogue with yourself, you'll ask many questions and you'll hear it. You'll know if that's the right one because the answers tend to be a bit clearer. Almost as if you're firing off so many to evaluate the train of thought that you're on. Sometimes when you need someone to talk to, they may be unavailable in your moment of need. And when this happens, frustration and feeling alienated may occur. I remember a few weeks ago, I wanted to talk to a friend to bounce off ideas to him and needed his feedback, but he was unavailable when I really needed him, and it made me feel a bit isolated. After a day of feeling stuck, I just, worked through it out loud, firing off different things, and the response to each one was taking the opposition, identifying counterpoints, the flaws, and questions surrounding what I was talking about. It allowed me to be honest with myself and was relieved, almost as if someone heard me, because I was being a friend, a confidant, a coach to myself. Me going back and forth with the conversations allowed me to see things from different viewpoints as opposed to just my own bias of that initial idea that I wanted to go through with. So when you don't have someone to talk to, you can always talk to yourself out loud, to lay out your troubles, your ideas, to pick things apart, to see where the holes are, or just to offer support and guidance. If you actually reflect on many conversations you have with others, you'll find that just talking through things, you find what you really need. Sometimes when people are there just to listen to us, not trying to give advice. We solve our own problems. Just hearing yourself provides just enough to find your eureka moment where you say, what I was looking for was right in front of me the whole time, and it just required removing the distractions. And many times, just keeping it in your head, it gets jumbled up and lost, that it keeps you repeating things with no progress. Or if you're trying to suppress that inner dialogue, even if it's something that's annoying you, it's a great way to just let it out. Maybe it's a difficult conversation you had with somebody, or it was an embarrassing or difficult moment that you experienced. By you talking about the things that are bothering you, it's almost therapeutic, where you're solving your own issues. It will alleviate you being worried as your emotional well-being improves. And if you try to suppress it or run from it, that difficult conversation you need to have with yourself, then it's going to get stronger. That's going to continuously eat away at you. A lot of times, the best route to take in those hard times that you're facing is to go right through it and avoid retreating. Because at least when you face it, you push through what you're working through and at least gain a sense of courage and power because you decided to be proactive, to take things in your own hands to affect the outcome. But retreating does the opposite. It takes away that sense that you can make a difference, and it just erodes your courage and confidence because you decided not to exercise the power that you do have. Another obvious thing that talking to yourself out loud does when you do it in an encouraging and empowering way is that it improves your confidence. So whether you're contemplating making a certain decision or trying to get up for a speech that you must give, talking to yourself is going to get you in the right frame of mind where you're focusing on what you can do right now. So just like a good coach or a good motivational speaker, it's giving you that pep talk so you have that extra juice, that belief that you're going to do great instead of all the things that could go wrong. So those words that you say out loud starts to silence the negativity within your inner dialogue. So this moves your attention away from you can't do this or you're going to fail at that, you're bad at this, and is more concentrated on the things that you tell yourself. You think it, you say it, you hear it, and then you can start to visualize it. You know, if you think about the R. Kelly song, I Believe I Can Fly, where he says, if I can see it, then I can do it, if I just believe it. And then he says, I believe I can fly. I believe I can touch the sky. I think about it every night and day. Spread my wings and fly away. And then he says, I believe I can soar. Driving home this point. So it's a process of believing in yourself. And I think there's just too much generic advice in the sense where people just say, you got to believe in yourself. And I think most people understand that they got to believe in themselves. But the process of how do I believe in myself? It starts by saying, if I can see it, which all starts with your thoughts, and the words give it power. And when you say it out loud, you give it life. And this song does such a great way of giving instructions on how to believe in yourself, how to believe you can fly, how you believe you can achieve what you want. Those lyrics in the song is a step-by-step method on how to believe in yourself. And there's actually another important piece to that song where he says, you know, he was on the verge of breaking down, and sometimes silence can seem so loud. And really, if you think about it, this makes so much sense, where if you just have the conversations in your head, it can be so chaotic that you're not able to focus properly, just drowning in so many different conversations, bouncing back and forth. Eventually, it can be frustrating where confidence starts to wane and are more likely to give in to what is easy. Then the song goes on to say, that miracle in life that I must achieve, but first I know it starts inside of me. And this all just drives home the point that you got to believe in yourself if you want to achieve what you want, especially if it's hard. No matter how much others believe in you, you have to believe in yourself. And that's what talking out loud to yourself can do for you. It can instill further that belief in yourself, build it up to make you take action. If you're not convinced that talking out loud to yourself is going to benefit you, think about when you sing your favorite song out loud, as opposed to when you just sing it in your head. You're more likely to feel more connected, more emotionally up for it when you sing it out loud. So those words become more meaningful and believe in what is said, and you have more energy. So that rhythm that the song has, it's going to trigger you into an elevated optimistic state. If you're already not talking to yourself out loud consistently, what's preventing you from doing so? Is it because it's viewed as only crazy people do this, or that it's embarrassing how others are going to view you? Think about when you're just talking on the phone with somebody. If it's not a video call, then you're only hearing the person's voice. But if you ever come across a person and they're talking and nobody's responding, and then you go to look and notice, oh, they have an earbud in their ear or they have headphones on, and then it makes it understandable why they're talking. This shouldn't be seen as acceptable or unacceptable behavior. If you want to talk to yourself out loud, go ahead and do it. If people have a problem with it, well, that's a problem they need to deal with on their own. But if you're just starting to incorporate talking to yourself out loud, in the beginning, it's going to feel awkward and uncomfortable. But the more that you can do it, the more you break away from this feeling. And maybe you only want to do this when you're in private, which is understandable. But at least make this a habit. Remember, it's vital that you have a great relationship with yourself. And by talking to yourself, it's going to strengthen that relationship. Sometimes you're going to want responses to the things that you're talking about. Maybe it's a question or feedback about what you're thinking. So you're going to have to be the one who responds. And the more that you can do this, the more multifaceted you become. And it's going to make you a lot more interesting. Over time, you're going to start to notice that not talking to yourself was probably more uncomfortable than actually talking to yourself, because remaining in silence keeps you ruminating and feeling like you're stuck in place. You might even think, why haven't I done this a lot sooner? Being my own best friend, being my own mentor to guide me through the struggles that I'm facing. A great way to help get started is to talk to yourself in the mirror, or have a recording of yourself, whether it's audio or video, and eventually it chips away at that uneasiness of, oh, I sound like that. And you just become so much more open with yourself, more accepting of who you are. That includes your shortcomings and your faults, which are not going to be as bothersome, and you'll be fine with it. I can remember when I first started recording these podcasts, the first few episodes, it just felt so awkward to hear my voice. And I was thinking, oh, I sound like that? But then the more I did it, I just felt so much more comfortable in my own skin and who I am. And as you start to talk to yourself a lot more out loud, it's important to find the right tone and message, knowing that you don't always have to be positive, and it's okay to talk about certain negative things because it's going to help clear up the air, but don't let it constantly be at the forefront. The things such as, I'm not good enough, or I'm never going to reach what I want. Instead, you can rephrase these types of statements in a more productive way, such as, what can I do better? Or how can I reach what I want? Because what I'm doing right now is currently not working. Or if it's saying negative things about the situations that you're in, maybe it's other people being negative. It's good to acknowledge where that negativity is coming from, but not just to blame them. Maybe you need to say some negative things to help you realize that maybe you need to remove yourself from the situation that you're in, from those negative sources. And then once you say those negative things that are on your mind, let them go and don't dwell on them. And instead focus on what's the next step. So if the thought comes up of, man, things are unfair, it's never going my way, you got to counter that with, listen, you know things are unfair, so how are you going to overcome it? You got to challenge yourself to find the solution instead of just complaining. Another important thing to get away from talking about the negative things is to shift to the neutral state, where instead of stating things coming off as biased, you're going to have to be able to regulate this, to know when you are subjective, and you got to be more objective. This is especially helpful in those hard moments that you're going through, when it seems like things are just mounting up against you. If you can state the facts in the situations that you're in, it becomes a lot more manageable, and it gives you some distance from what you're experiencing. Let's say you invented a new product and see the potential that it has for people in their everyday lives, yet nobody is interested in what you created. Instead of saying, well, they're a bunch of idiots, they don't know how valuable this is, instead, What you could say is, people are not interested in it. And then you got to ask why. Searching for answers instead of just assuming. What you could ask yourself is, who is the ideal person for this product? And then go find those people. This helps to get out of your own way. Maybe what was invented is misunderstood and needs to be explained or shown how valuable it is. Or maybe it just needs to be improved on to attract people. But doing this helps to separate an emotional attachment to what you've worked on. This self-talk also gives you that safe space to say what you want without really hurting somebody's feelings or causing some sort of destruction to the relationships you have. I know there's a time where I just kind of lose my cool on my own. Maybe I drop food on the ground and for whatever reason, I'm not in a composed state and I'll start yelling, firing off things about what just happened, only for me to immediately realize that was totally uncalled for. I just overreacted. How can I let a small situation like this really get to me? And then I almost feel like I should have handled myself a lot better. But this really helps me going forward in future situations because I'll use those low points or how I overreacted as a learning opportunity. So this is the freedom to really let loose some of the things that are brewing beneath the surface, where you can let it out so you can reset and be better going forward. We're all going to have those bad days, those bad moments, and you can talk to yourself out loud as a way to expel the not so great parts. Remember, you already talk to yourself on some level, and you might even do it out loud on occasion, but really come to embrace it and make it part of your daily routine. Yes, in the beginning, it's going to feel uncomfortable, but the more that you do it, the more comfortable you get with it. It's your chance to really let things out that are racing through your mind, and it's going to give you more clarity to the answers that you need by being able to sift through the right questions. Sometimes others are not going to be available to hear us out in our moment of need. And if that happens, you can be there for yourself, showing compassion and listening to what you got to say. Where you have those conversations and taking opposing viewpoints, seeing things from different angles, which is just going to make you more well-rounded. It's like you catch the holes, working through the complexities of the things that you might be thinking, and this is going to improve your decision making. So the benefits when you talk to yourself out loud is improved performance because you're able to gain more focus and you have a better chance of memorizing the things that you say out loud. It's a great way to alleviate some of the stress and struggles that you're going through because you're working through the clutter. You'll have better self-control to know when to restrain yourself and gain a higher level of accountability to yourself. That's going to make you a lot more successful in your pursuits. Remember, words are tools so you can picture things, so be careful of those things that you say out loud. While you should still talk to others for your overall well-being, know that that's not the only source of how you can talk through some of the things that you're facing. Let yourself be your own best friend, your own mentor, because the great thing is that it's always available to you no matter what. Well, it's that time. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you're interested in more topics like this, become a Thriving Minds member at www.thrivingminds.live. It's your personal development resource so you can build that right mindset so you can live to thrive. All right, until next time.